Hello, and welcome to Morgan Latif Presents. I'm Oliver Morgan, co-founder and director of Morgan Latif and your host, and today I'm joined by Marie-Phillipe Vanheems to discuss the power of purpose. Marie-Philippe is a mechanical engineer. She has over 15 years of experience in operational excellence, working in top-tier companies including Avery Dennison, Nestle and Carlsberg. She helps conscious leaders transform their business from startups into big corps and is a purpose developer and cash maker. She has her own I Love OPEX community, is a member of Women International Network, and has a vision of freedom and equity in the workplace. When we discuss purpose, we start off by looking at the definition for both individuals, companies, and departments. We discuss the consequence of not having a clear purpose, why it's important, and how you can define your purpose. I hope you find it interesting. Today, you're going to be talking to us about the 3 Ps and especially the purpose of the organization. So if you could just start us off talking about what you mean by the 3 Ps, please.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. So, what means the 3 Ps? We have been working like 15 years now in operational excellence, and what we talk about the 3 Ps, which is purpose, people, and processes. And all over the years, when we implement Lean or what you call TPM or Six Sigma, we always first looked at, let's say, optimizing the processes. Great, and we had improvement, but we realized, of course, that people were really important and to engage them. So we found a way to bring their autonomy, to engage them further, to motivate them. And in the recent years, actually, the purpose came across stronger. And before we talked a lot about, the standard scorecard with the cost, the quality, the delivery, etc. But now it's changing, and what we're doing has actually much more values than it was.
And so I think then purpose, as you said, becomes more and more important. How do you define that in terms of let's say, a company, first of all?
Yeah, I will. That's true. There is a huge semantic around it because we never know what is it. Is it the mission, the smart objective, the vision, what it is? For that, I will bring back the definition of Simon Sinek, so everybody is aligned here on what we're talking about. The purpose is defined in two things. You have the vision. The vision is what you want to bring to the society in the future, and your vision over time can change. Like, for instance, for me, my actual vision is equity and freedom at the workplace. This is what I'm striving for. But in 5 years, I can change my vision, what I want to bring to the world, what we call also the just cause. And then the second thing in the purpose is your drive. And your drive is, we call it your why, in French, your raison d'etre. And this is something that never change. So you have, for instance, when you have an Apple, the drive of Apple is think different. And this is something that has been founded from, it gives the soul, if I may say, of a company.
And is it the same? So I can imagine the purpose for a company versus the purpose for an individual and even a team within or a department within the company. Is it always the same process?
Yeah, exact. Actually, yes. And that's why in my practice, I was doing it a lot for companies. And during the COVID time, actually, I had a more and more individual ask me to support it. I have some example, like for instance, yeah, when you think about Steve Jobs, I mean, the purpose of Steve Jobs, think different. Exactly the purpose of Apple. This is the one coming from the founder or the co-founder, and you have to have a discussion. This is the same. I don't know if you know. Well, you know Harley Davidson. There
Yeah.
were four brothers, four friends and brothers, and then their purpose is actually freedom. Okay, their vision is different, but their purpose and their drive, their why is freedom. And so yes, this is always linked. And if you want to create your own company, and it's what we do with startup, then we always start with your own drive and your own vision to build one of your company, actually.
And do you think from an employee perspective that there should always be an alignment between an individual's purpose and the company's purpose? How important is that?
Yeah, I would say two different. Like you have two steps, two stage. And I always ask that, and it's like, would you prefer to go to Apple or to go to Microsoft? Or are you more Microsoft guy or Apple guy? So that's people, for instance, who like Apple, are people who want to feel that they want to innovate, that they are creative. It's something linked with actually their own value, so you're attracted to it. So your first step to join a company is also because you're attracted to their drive or their vision, and then you want to join. After you own, each of us is unique, so each of us has a set of whys, which is described by uniqueness. And what is important for you when you join a company is to understand the drive of your other team members, yourself, and to look a bit how could evolve your function according to it. And it's so powerful when we do the exercise for all individual in the team, and we understand everyone else drives and vision, then we can adjust the role in consequence within the team so that people can strive even more. This is awesome. And you see like people are much happier and more autonomous. That's why I love doing this right now.
Yeah, I was thinking actually there's value in this topic both for individuals as candidates and also as hiring managers, because if you join a company where you're aligned with your purpose, your satisfaction, your performance is going to be much higher, and actually how long you stay, and that benefits the company as well.
Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's and then actually it comes a bit back, to the definition of before the 80s, before we had all this shareholder, I call it supremacy. People were staying in companies for all their life. They were loyal and trust, etc. Then when we switch and now we're back to this envy to be in a company, to live it, this is like a family or so, and yes, to strive again even more. And so important for the talent retention today as well.
Well, I can imagine it's a much more emotional connection rather than a financial one, where typically in the past you may have stayed in a company because they're paying you and there's some level of security, whereas if your purpose is aligned, you're staying there because there's an emotional, personal connection, and it is much more valuable, much more beyond that.
True, completely true. And yeah, and if I'm yeah, it's like coming back to the definition of capitalism today. Before it was, Adam Smith. I don't know if you know him. He was giving the definition of capitalism in the 18th century, and he was saying first think about the consumer and your employee, etc., before yourself, as a company. And as I mentioned, he switched it a bit, this idea. Now it's coming back, and how we see that coming back. Well, you have seen that B Corp, I don't know if you know B Corporation, which means Benefit Corporation, was created by Brothers in 2006. And in 2007, we had the first 80 plus companies were certified B Corp. And B Corp is really mission-driven companies who has a positive impact, on people and the planet. Um, After that, you had United Nations with the famous 17 SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals. And then we want to strive for a better, future purpose. So this is evolving. That came in 2012. So it's more like in the last 10, 15 years that now we evolve much more in a purpose-driven society.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so we've spoken about employee attraction and retention, but just in general, what are the consequences for an organization of not having a clear purpose, but potentially in today's world in particular?
Yes. I have the example of if you're not focused on your purpose, you're mainly focused on what you do, your products. Okay, so your products is what you strive for. You want the best price, best quality, this standard way of thinking. Then you can see, then of course you have technology disruptions happening. And then this is your risk, which is really high. I have this great example for Garmin. Garmin was the king of GPS in 2006, 2007, and the stock went down from $100 to $10 in 1 year because of a smartphone came out. So Garmin was an example that were driven by the how more than the why and their purpose. In contrary, you have companies like Patagonia. Patagonia is not want to do the best quality, they want to save the earth. They say it like that. But actually, if I may say the right sentence for them, we are in business to save our home planet. That's the right sentence. And since 1996, and they have done a tremendous, I would say, a crazy choice. Like, for instance, they didn't want, the retail vest to sell it anymore because their name will be associated with another company which has not the same value. So at first sight, we say, shit, they're going to cut to a product which is right now super booming, and it will have an impact on their revenue. But it was absolutely the contrary. Because of his statement, they were selling even more. So the same for Black Friday, they say that everything they will make as money on Black Friday will give it to an association for a planet. They never sell as much on this day. So that has a huge consequence. And even in the beginning, you feel that, wow, I will not get the profit right away. That's not it. This is a consequence after.
So you think that even if the companies have a great product and they don't necessarily focus on the product, if their purpose and what they're trying to achieve, the why is great, then especially, let's say, more and more today, then people will follow them, and the value, the profit will come.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're doing today. During the COVID, you have a lot of companies of different size. They were mainly focusing on the product, and now we're like, okay, but why at first stage you found your company? What do you want to achieve? What's your purpose in that? And then the way to achieve your purpose, you can take different products to achieve it, not only one way. And this way of thinking is absolutely striving today, and much more consequence during the COVID. So this is what saved companies, actually. They're not thinking about the what, they're really thinking about the why.
When you say that, so why did it save companies? Why were they able to survive because of their purpose when others maybe didn't have that focus?
Yeah, that's a good. Well, that's true that you have to be authentic to yourself, and like the moment where you are authentic to what you want to achieve and you touch actually your customer. I have I have in my mind like a customer, like I have one of my startup that I'm working with is a company who wants to stop the first disease of the world, which is burnout. Imagine. So they want a burnout-free world. So just listening to that, you're like, wow, this is something that I would like to be related to and I want to strive for. The way they can do it has different angle. But in the beginning, they were extremely technical because they are working on wearable, how to put on people and to define, with the parameters. It was really AI related, really linked to psychology of human being. And even if the beginning was really product oriented, they came back to say, okay, our idea is burnout free world. So how can we achieve that? And the business angle are much open, and you open up to different ways. Of course, after, I'm not going to say you're not looking at the customer voice. You have to say, like, on the different way to achieve it, which one will have a better impact today? And then you're still doing your lean practices to understand the voice of the customer and then make the right decision from that, but never losing your vision at the end.
So maybe if the purpose is clear, not only will your employees stay with you because of that emotional connection, your customers will, and as long as you know what your why is, you can pivot to achieve that by different ways.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah.
So how do you find it? That's the I think for so many companies don't have a clear purpose, and you talk to us about what your thoughts are on that.
Yes. So yeah, there is a way actually, which is well, you have different case scenario. So if you still have a founder of a company, or yourself you're founding the company, then the exercise is done on you or the founder. All right. So it's easy to find the company drives and purpose. So the exercise is this, to find the drive, so the value, or the soul of the company. There is like a tribe of different exercise to understand actually the pattern in your life since you're a kid, to understand which were the moment of joy, which were the moment of intrinsic motivation. And when you see this pattern, you can define actually your why. You usually have around 2 or 3 that we can find out. And then from that, you define your values. All right. If you're more than one founder, so you have co-founders, it's super important to have all of you guys mapping your drives and understanding together what should be the one of your company. Because usually it's not plus, 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 but you have to make conscious choices of this drive. And for the vision, it's more legacy. So it's like, what would be like if tomorrow, let's say you're not in this world anymore. I don't want to say that negatively, but what is your legacy? What do you want to leave behind? What do you want to change even a little bit in the world with your company? What right now? And when you ask this question, then you have your vision. So your vision is usually easier to find, but your drive and the soul is much more complicated.
And for a bigger organization, because I can imagine with the startup, it's probably easier to come to that stage. In a mid-sized company, or even in a corporate, they've probably often grown up without having a purpose, because it has become
absolutely right.
Yeah, or the purpose.
So what you do is that you take the people who are there for so many years. So if they have been there, it's that probably you bring them to the room. So it's like the wise man and woman, of the company who have been there forever, like this guy who were there 30, 20 years. And then with them you build it, because they have it. That's why they stayed, that's why they are. So you want to find the common point between the drive of these people that will actually draw the way of a company.
Right, okay, so you're saying that actually often there has been a purpose there, it's just maybe that people have, or companies have not been able to clearly articulate it, for example.
Also, there is always a soul in a company. Or really, if you just completely want to change it and make it a complete different environment, then you make 180 degrees, then you do it with your new CEO. But normally, no, you still have a soul, and you want to keep the soul of the company.
Taking the startup example or the founder example, and you've gone through that process, I can imagine as you grow and bring more people on board from different backgrounds and perspectives, it might be quite difficult to keep the people living and breathing the purpose.
Well, if what I've seen is the other way around, so more that actually people didn't define their purpose and their drive in the beginning from the company, and they were hiring people, and it was not working really well, and people were leaving, and the founders didn't understand why. So often I have this moment of crisis, or they have people on board, but everybody tries to find his place, and it's the gray area what's happening. And when we do the exercise, people are really happy because it clarifies everything, and it clarifies what's vision and what are the drives. And I give you an example. If one of the founder of a company I have, they're co-founders, and they choose these 3 values. One of them is, for them, it's so important to have equity in the workplace and to have this family feeling. One of the founders is really keen to that, and the others is want this equity. So they create this type of community, which means, what does it mean? It means at the workplace, you want that they feel at home, they want they feel like a family, and everybody is treated the same. So the hierarchy is non-existent, for instance. They also want the customer feel like, so for the company, they prefer to have customer they stay with them for a long time than multiple customer to make the revenue. Okay, the same family, so they will nurture their customer that they stay in this community. So you see the impact already, but it needs to be practical what it means. If you're somebody who likes the change all the time, you will not join this company because you know that they will have this family thing, they want you to stay. One of the value that they have is they always want to be smart in the technology. They want to know to test the last technology things always. So that means the innovation side is so important, and they are open-minded to all critics or all new ideas to implement. So again, here, your innovation side will say, if you look for a company where it's always safe, always the same processes, always the same way, you will not join this company. Okay, so you see a bit the example. It needs to be after translate practically what it means for your customer and for the people you hire. And then you will actually attract the right people right away. You can put that on the job description, the values and the vision of the company, because then you already do a filter.
So if the purpose is clear as well, that almost guides behaviors and can change actions and ways people work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's a huge opportunity from an onboarding perspective as well, because often when companies onboard leaders or employees, they focus on the process in just terms of administrative. This is how the company, this is how things work. There's not so much of an onboarding from a purpose or a culture perspective. So I think that could be a huge potential for companies as well.
Yeah. Well, one company, like when you were saying that, make me think of one company here locally in Switzerland, or nobody else in the world will know this company. It's called Coca, but it's QOQA. Perhaps you have heard about this company because they have, that's the first one who bought a Picasso, a real Picasso, and we could buy a piece of this Picasso
Oh, really?
every. So they democratize the way that they could, and then you have a right to see your own Picasso, and you bring just a little money to get it. And I think I don't remember how many people they got it exactly. I don't want to say wrong number. But this company is always looking on new way to, how can I say, to sell. They have a completely different way of looking at selling and life. And when you do the onboarding at their place, because I met the CEO there, and he was showing me exactly the onboarding, what you mentioned. And so the people, they have little mission to do. So they have the application and missions to do, which are really cool ones, to find out things about your peers. So they are quite edgy also in the way they implement it, but align with what they represent. Already the name Coca is quite provocative,
Yeah, absolutely. I guess at the moment it's a bit more difficult where you're having to randomly invite people to Zoom meetings instead of tapping them on the shoulder, but it's probably another topic. It seems like the purpose is obviously really important, and there's so many benefits of getting it right. Why do you think companies haven't adapted quicker to this?
Well, yeah, that's fantastic question. I believe we're still so this is really based on my hypothesis. I don't want to cite anything else here, but what I believe is that we still have a traditional way to do business today, where still the performance is number one, and performance is related to the profit of a company and not the creating value for community and beyond. So I believe we're still working with early adopters today, looking at the purpose. The change is there, but it's not there yet. And the second aspect that I was thinking is also this, the shareholder supremacy that we always talk about is often related to character in leadership, which are male. So I don't say men and women, but more like, go to actions, be performing, etc. And when you look at the world a bit more on the, like you mentioned earlier, on the emotional side, on the vulnerable side, and you develop yourself, man and woman, your feminine side, then you have much more this purpose-driven way. So it's evolving and it's progressing, like I mentioned, like with the B Corp we saw, with the DNI, diversity and inclusion people coming in everywhere in the companies these days. So it's developing, but it's changing progressively. It takes time. It takes time.
Do you think you said coronavirus has sped up the process of this?
Yeah, because suddenly, well, myself, I was also affected, by the COVID. I had a mission. I had to go to Germany and India, and it was canceled. And suddenly, I had phone call from CEO or startup or individuals asking that actually they were rethinking and thinking, what do I do in this, or what do I do with my company, how do I pivot? And then it's accelerating because we look at the why and not what to do. And you could see that in parallel you saw also the way we were thinking the COVID. It was economy or COVID, or caring our people, actually. And we still have this question, how much should we look at the profit compare of caring on the people? And also we saw also that the countries led by women as a better way to, because looking at the purpose, caring on people, were better handling the COVID situation. And this definition of better is, of course, depending on one country or another. So, yes, I think this actually, yes, this pandemic just bring us new question and that we didn't have, but we had before, but accelerating it now, I think.
Do you think it's also related, Dan, always thinking about leadership, do you think that the old hierarchical top-down leadership approach is probably more typical in a company that's focused on the product and the process, whereas we now have flatter hierarchies, more servant leadership, and they probably focus a lot more on the why and the individual's why? Do you think they're related at all?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And because yes, the motivation of somebody is related to three things, which is the first, a sense of belonging. So it's one of a purpose. The second is the autonomy. And the third one is the technical competencies that you have, that you feel that you can master it. It's what the definition of Daniel Pink. And so, yes, so if you let the autonomy of people by your servant leader, but you still need to bring the vision where you want to bring and to have this sense of belonging there. And this is what engage and motivate people. Absolutely.
So I think the leadership skills that are required to understand people's purpose, relate it back to the companies and achieve results in that environment are probably quite different than that dictatorship approach from a leadership style.
We still have a lot of work on that, man.
Yeah, very much true. So, I mean, thank you so much for taking the time for this discussion. If you could give us a few key takeaways that our listeners and viewers should take from this conversation, what would the main topics be?
Find your purpose. Seriously, that's what I would say, and think about the value of a company you're in or you're building, that correspond to you, of course, and yeah, what do you want to bring to the world? What's your purpose? But I would really encourage everybody to reflect on that.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your time, Marie-Philippe. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Have a great rest of the day.
Bye bye, everyone.